Chest up, shoulders back. This is Revival Fitness, and if you recall, recently we talked about why everybody is switching to low volume, why it's become so popular again, and now we're going to talk about very practical benefits of this style of training. And the linchpin of success with low volume is high intensity. And we're going to break down the details of intensity shortly, but first, look what I found. Doing some research for this video, I came across this old post from Mike Israetel on Instagram. He says, quote, "Evidence-based guys don't train hard enough. Cool. While you're patting yourself on the back for doing one set to failure, please kindly get out of the way of the trash can. I have more sets to do after I throw up. Those seeking ascension do what they must, not what makes their ego smile and lets them excuse laziness with toughness." Holy projection. This has aged worse than Mike himself has. This was posted in 2020. He's posted this many other times since then, even very recently. The vomiting thing is an issue he has clearly not figured out. You can look at that as a badge of honor, like it's hardcore, but realistically, this is not good. And there are so many people dealing with gut issues that either don't realize it, or if they do, they don't know what to do about it. Vomiting while training, that's a pretty big red flag. But other common, albeit less known, signs of gut problems can include skin flare-ups, frequent bloating, gas, issues in the bathroom, and even fatigue and brain fog. And if you're dealing with gut health issues yourself, I think you should check out Live It Up. Thanks to Live It Up for sponsoring this video, and their super greens are designed specifically to support holistic gut health. They are designed to support digestion, less bloating, as well as natural energy. Super greens contain organic vegetables. That means they are not sprayed with all of those pesticides, including glyphosate, and it also contains probiotics and digestive enzymes to optimize your gut as much as possible. And especially if you follow a more standard fitness meal plan with a lot of lean protein and a high carb intake, you probably should be getting more vegetables in your diet. You get the full array of the vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants, and this product is totally sugar-free, caffeine-free, gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free, and nut-free as well. And all of this comes down to only $1.33 per serving. So if you want to give Live It Up Super Greens a try, be sure to scan the QR code on the screen or click the link in the description box and use my code MK15 to get 15% off of your order. So at this point, I'm sure some of you were saying, "All right, bro, more dunking on Mike, give it a rest, you're beating a dead horse." No, I'm not, because Mike is not a dead horse. He is a legendary LOL cow. This guy is a goldmine of content. I think of it more as milking an LOL cow. But that said, this relates exactly to this topic, because Mike Israetel is a guy over the years that has promoted sometimes laughably high volume, but he's a higher volume advocate in general, and as we saw with that Instagram post as well, he's oftentimes going at the guys that are preaching low volume, really high intensity, and he frames it, and so many other people do as well, as if the people that do low volume are doing that because they're lazy, or they don't really like training, or something like that, when that is simply not the case. And while Mike Mentzer gets most of the limelight in this sense, Dorian Yates is the most accomplished bodybuilder that has used a similar training style. And if you have not seen, I think you would have by now, but let's recap anyway, Dorian just buried Mike Israetel.
Dr. Mike, first of all, I hope that you're being like tongue-in-cheek, kind of humorous. Otherwise, I fear either for your eyesight or your mental health, because obviously your physique's nowhere near Mike Mentzer, even with all the PEDs that you're taking, that you estimate will take 10 years off your life. Maybe you need to ask yourself whether it's worth it, mate, because a bag of shit that gets bigger is just a bigger bag of shit. Still a bag of shit. You know what I mean, mate?
Oh. And yes, I am going to make a full reaction video to Mike's reaction to Dorian Yates' training. I've never actually seen that full video, but if you remove everything else from the equation, the pro card, the status, the genetics, the Olympia titles, the exact training split, all of it, what is the single biggest difference between Mike Israetel and Dorian Yates, as well as Mike Mentzer, what is the biggest difference between them in terms of the training itself? It is the intensity. And I think actually seeing the way Mike Israetel trains has opened a lot of people's eyes on this subject. We've already seen the clips of him on the hamstring curl, acting like he's going to failure, especially the one whenever he's screaming, and the weight does not slow down at all. Well, guess what? He has recently put up this on Instagram. He is supposedly vomiting during his hardcore leg day. Let's see what made him supposedly vomit. Okay, we got the hack squat, 4 plates aside. Mike goes down very low on these, which you don't have to go that low to really hit the quads, but he would claim that it helps. Even so, his form is very buttoned up on these, to his credit. Okay, so we're still going through the reps. Weight's not really slowing down at all. He's not doing that crazy lockout that he's done on the leg press. I guess that's good at least. I would not advocate that. Okay, still going. Yeah, this is easily light for him. You know, I mean, a guy with the leg size... Oh, there's a lockout. The leg size of this guy, though, 4 plates aside, I mean, you can see, right? He's just pushing these reps out. Not much of a problem. Takes the pause there. Really not slowing down much even then. Okay, that was a tad slower. A little bit. Alright, still going. And we rack it right there. You guys see what I mean. And this is something Lyle McDonald talked about a long time ago too with Mike. And he's totally correct. That weight really did not slow down at all. Even during the final few reps. Barely noticeable. That was not any serious level of intensity being met. Here he's doing the split squats on this cool machine. 25s each side. That's the weight that a lot of girls are using. Some girls for their warm-up sets, they're doing this. This is not hard at all, especially for a guy of his size. And now we're on the hamstring curl. Okay, we are using full ROM as he preaches. That's good. Alright. Cranking these out. We got the toes pointed out. Do you have to really do that? I don't think it makes that big of a difference. Okay, he's keeping his hips on the pad, so no cheating. Cool. Still going. Cranking these out easily. Yet again, this is not heavy for him at all. Yep. Another. He could do many, many more. Weight is not really slowing down at all. Tiny bit there. This is what, 12, 15 reps? And then we end the set again. This is nothing close to serious intensity. And whenever you train like this, you need to do more volume because you're not pushing yourself per set. When you actually train hard, you do not and you cannot do a whole lot of volume. If you are vomiting from training like that, well, it's not the training. So at this point, we should probably define intensity. And there are really 3 main ways that it can be defined within the context of weight training. But in terms of hard numbers, that which really cannot be open for interpretation, I guess it could be to some extent because going off a percentage of 1 rep max can be sort of a guess if you've never actually tested it, at least recently. But the most tangible number is percentage of 1 RM. So that exists sort of in a vacuum. That is simply the amount of weight you're using in relation to your own strength level. Then, off of that, you have RIR or RPE. These are intended to measure how close you got to true muscle failure. And these measure the same thing, but essentially inversely. So 0 RIR and 10 RPE both represent the most intensity possible on your own. Then 1 RIR equals 9 RPE, 2 RIR equals 8 RPE, and you can go down the line. So in the context of general muscle building, there's not really a need to be using a calculated percentage of your 1 rep max. I'm not doing that myself right now. It is something I have done in the past for extended periods, especially if you're doing something like a so-called power building split. And powerlifters in general essentially have to do this for their training, but this really applies to the biggest barbell lifts in particular. And keep in mind too, you don't have to formally test the 1RM. You don't have to actually try it. You can get an estimated percentage going off of reps on a given exercise too. That also has its own flaws because those calculators tend to overestimate your 1 rep max. So there's a lot of potential kind of holes with the numbers here. But for simple training for size, you don't have to really ever do the percent 1RM. You can sort of know it roughly just to have that information in your back pocket. But you can get as big as possible and never formally calculate that. But what you do need to do is reach a sufficient point of intensity with, well, really every set that you do. So that's why we're going to focus on RPE and RIR. So with these clips that we saw of Mike earlier, what would you say that his RIR and RPE are on the hack squat as well as the hamstring curl? Because they're pretty similar. The weight slowed down a very, very little bit. That seems to be a very consistent trend of all the training clips of his that I have seen. At the points we saw him end the set at, he easily could have done a handful more reps if he had to. Maybe even 6, 7, or even more. In any case, he is not exerting any serious amount of effort nor intensity. He simply is not. There's no way to defend this otherwise. I like to use RIR as opposed to RPE because I think that it's more tangible to guess how many more reps you could have done compared to a general estimate of exertion. Both of these can take time to really understand, especially if you are a younger lifter. That's one of the biggest things I work with a lot of my clients on. They have no real gauge of RIR or RPE. And keep in mind, once you get one down, you can inversely linearly equate it with the other. But a lot of guys think that they're training really, really intensely, and they're not. Some other guys, they have the other problem. They push these sets extremely hard, and they always think they can get one more rep when you look at the bar speed and the straining, and it's like, dude, there was no chance. And something else very common too. Most guys, they will push high intensity with the upper body training, but not with the lower. Now that said, I do not go past failure. I don't do cheat reps. I don't have a spotter come over and give me some assistance. I don't have them like slow down the negative and I can crank those out without any concentrics. Why? Well, number one, I usually train alone. I have nobody to really reliably do that. You could ask people, but I just don't like to do that myself. And number two, I don't think it's necessary. Is it bad to go past failure? I think you can make arguments that it's going to induce more fatigue than necessary, especially depending on the exercise. But overall, I think at least it provides no real benefit. It's another one of those things where if you do extremely low volume, like Mentzer was advocating oftentimes, only, 3 to 4 sets a week, or even less at some points, I could kind of see it there. I don't advocate volume that low, that's for sure. But on that note, let's do a quick recap of my take on volume. Here is the chart. I do not like the 10 to 20 set per week range, as I told you guys. Too broad. It's just senseless. My range, as you can see here, goes from 4 to 16. 4 is on the low end per week. 15 to 16, I think, is very, very high. But I think the sweet spot for almost everybody is about 8 to 12 hard sets per week. I said that in the last video. Realistically, I think you could even say 7 to 10. Some guys are going to go up to 12, and also depending on how your math works, because that's also subjective, the set math per week. Like how much is a full set versus a half set? There's not really a right answer when it comes to that. But generally speaking, I think 12 really is the most that anybody needs. I've said before, if you cannot grow optimally on like 9 to 10 sets per week, you're doing something wrong. And this is how I lay out my own programs as well. You can check them out, linked down below. Not just exercises on a sheet. I lay out everything you need to know to make serious gains over the long term. A full guide on progression, and you can find testimonials on my site. Tons and tons of happy guys that have used them. But now let's wrap up with what I consider the 5 biggest benefits of so-called low volume training. And if you're somebody right now that is plateauing pretty consistently, even if you're going to the gym all the time, getting in the workouts and the food and everything else, the recovery, your volume is most likely one of your biggest problems. The intensity should always be higher priority than the volume, not the other way around. And this is reason number 1 why low volume is so beneficial. It forces you to train hard. or at least it forces you to learn how to train hard, because many people think that they're doing so, but they're really not. This is an inherent mindset, whether it comes to the gym or really anything else. If you're spoiled for choice, you're less likely to take any of the options seriously. It's very similar when it comes to overall volume. If you've got a ton of volume to do every single week, by default, you're more likely to sandbag a lot of those sets, not put in full effort, kind of go through the motions and coast. And this is something I would challenge a lot of you to do yourselves. If you've always been doing the typical 14, 16, or even more sets per week, do this on your own. You will experience this. Drop the volume down, go as hard as you can, or if it's an exercise where you don't really want to be failing, like a squat, bench, or deadlift, heavier compounds, at least push to about 1 rep in reserve. You're going to realize, 1, you likely have not been pushing as hard as you think for most of your entire training career, and number 2, do that for long enough, you're probably going to realize you don't need as much volume as you thought. There's a lot of people in the gym that I see, especially in commercial gyms, but women in particular seem to do this. Their form can be completely perfect. It would get an A+ on a test or a demonstration, but you watch them train, and they are not pushing themselves at all. They go through the motions, they do 4, 5, 6 sets on an exercise, but they're just doing it up, down, rack the weight. If you take nothing else from this video, understand this. You will always get much more from 2 sets to, say, 95% intensity than 6 sets at about 75, 80% intensity. And that goes into benefit number 2 of low volume training, better progressive overload. It is seen as a badge of honor to not be able to walk after leg day, bro. Can't sit on the toilet. Oh, my arms are so sore. My delts are so sore, can't raise them over my head. That sounds cool, and people can kind of paint themselves as hardcore in beast mode with that. It doesn't mean anything tangibly. Realistically, if you're extremely sore after your workouts, especially after you've been adapted to the routine for a couple weeks, that's proof that your training needs fixed. The volume is too high, and that enables this type of thing. But the more sets that you do, by default, the more fatiguing each set becomes. And this is an effect that kind of stacks on top of itself. So a lot of people, they're going into 4 or 5 sets per exercise. They're not progressively overloading. As talked about, they're going to have to reduce the weight they use, at the minimum, reduce the reps that they were doing. They're fatigued already, as it is, by virtue of being at that point, and then they're still stacking fatigue on top of that fatigue. And as you can imagine, the more this fatigue builds up, you are going to have to carry it into your following workouts. And you may be able to overcome this for a given period of time, or overall, you can still make progress if you're very fatigued. Hopefully you can. But oftentimes, once you kind of cut out that excess fatigue, and really it's junk volume, the threshold of junk volume is much lower than most people think. People do that. For example, whenever they work with me, we make these changes, and they're like, dude, I'm progressing on everything way faster, way easier than I was before. Those are not the numbers you want to hit, weekly sets. The numbers you want to focus on hitting are the progressive overload numbers. Add weight to the bar, to the dumbbells, to the machines, or add reps if you can't do that. And benefit number 3, this ties into number 2, but I'm experiencing this more myself now, the more advanced and experienced that I get. As you get bigger and stronger, the more that every set you do fatigues you. And this is something that you can anecdotally see in both bodybuilders and powerlifters. Oftentimes they work up to a top heavy set, they do that, then they do so-called back-off sets. The stronger that you get, you cannot be cranking out numerous sets because you're going to get too exhausted and you could simply hurt yourself. Think about it like this. If you deadlift right now as a novice, say like 250 pounds, you could do that for a number of sets, most likely, with no real drawbacks, no pain, no serious fatigue. It could still add up, but it's not that bad. You train for a few years, you're at the point that you can deadlift 500 pounds, let alone more than that, or even sort of close to that, mid-400s. One single set of that is way more fatiguing and taxing on the entire body, and the same applies to any exercise, even the isolations. This is something that I have been through a lot lately myself. I used to say like, okay, yeah, that is the case for the compound free weight movements. And I was like, oh, you could still do curls and lateral raises, tricep extensions, and just crank out volume on those a bit more so. Don't spam them. I never advocate spamming lateral raises, for example. That bullshit. But even for me now, on isolations, I do like cable curls, the pec deck, things like that are typically not thought of as that fatiguing. I'm at the point with those that I'm pretty strong now. Even one hard set is noticeably taxing. Oftentimes 2 sets for me, and I'm done on those. I often see a drop-off in reps, especially with the isolations. There are certain things that, in terms of the progression, become very slow overall. And you might think that, oh, well, if you get bigger and stronger, though, you can handle the heavier weights. Well, yes, you can handle them. You're strong enough and big enough now to lift those weights. That said, it's like anything else, guys. There is a diminishing rate of returns. Nobody who is extremely big or strong, or even just very big or strong, say a general advanced lifter, nobody can just crank out set after set after set with, say, 300 plus pounds on the bench press easily. There's a few freaks that can do so, but keep in mind they're going to be benching 500-ish pounds as their max. And you can extrapolate this further and further. But even then, as you get very advanced in the gym, you cannot tolerate that much volume, at least high intensity thresholds with that volume. I used to be in the camp that, well, the more advanced you get, you may need some more volume for given body parts to get that little bit of extra growth. At this point now, given my own experience in that training and coaching other people, I don't think you need to increase the volume. You could even argue in some cases that the more advanced that you get, the less volume overall that you need. It's more about making decisions of exercises and technique and frequency, other factors like that within that volume. And that goes on to benefit number 4, and this becomes more important too, I think, the more experienced that you get. It is pain prevention. So one of the biggest reasons that guys get hurt in the gym, even if it is more minor injuries, you know, the really annoying stuff, drawn out shoulder pain or knee pain, whatever it's going to be, hip, psoas, there's all kind of issues that guys have that oftentimes will flare up, and you have to just baby it over and over and do all these mobility drills like an old man for weeks. I've been there myself many times, guys. I get it. My shoulder now is acting up a little bit. I thought I totally fixed it. I think I did. It's kind of flaring up a little bit now. I'm going through it again too. This is what happens as you get bigger and stronger in the gym especially. And you guys can see it. These people go in the gym once they're pretty advanced. To do a bench press, they got to wrap up like a mummy, sleeves and wraps. To do a squat, even a hack squat or a leg press, knee sleeves on. It's ridiculous. But oftentimes, if you're always pushing through the pain, you have to do that. Now, of course, there's ways you can adjust your form and technique to try to alleviate certain pains. You can do the rehab and prehab type of stuff, do a good warm-up mobility routine. But ultimately, when it comes to preventing pain, you get to a certain point of strength, you're always going to be dealing with certain things, especially given genetics and your individual build. You're going to be more predisposed to certain things as well. What's the best way to really alleviate that overall? It's not simply doing higher reps, which some people can find that does help them. But remember, rep ranges are not about volume. In terms of the volume itself, doing less overall sets in the gym, that's going to keep your joints and your tendons under less stress more than really anything else. So for example, if you do like a hack squat or a leg press, and you've got some pain in your knee, and it's not so bad that you have to stop the set, but it's notable, and maybe certain weeks it really flares up, you have to not do that exercise, or you get kind of close to it, you have to cut the set short, very common. Realistically, you could keep doing, say, 3 or 4 sets, and pushing through it, and grind your teeth and take really long rest periods, longer than you even need, because you're fearing it. You could put on the sleeves and everything else. Or you could drop the sets down to, say, maybe 2 or even 1. Work with that for a bit. Once you adjust to it, you're likely going to find that the pain overall is going to be improved to some extent. Because remember, the more sets you do overall, the more fatigue that accumulates. Even for the joints and the tendons, that applies too. It's not only for the muscles. And now benefit number 5 of low volume training. You save time. And in terms of practicality, this could be the single biggest thing. I know for a lot of you, you cannot relate to this right now. You're in high school or college. You think you're busy. You have a couple papers to write, an assignment. Your life is on easy mode right now. I've been in your position. You don't understand how good you have it. But once you leave the fairy tale world of school, and especially if you move out of your parents' house, a lot of people now don't even do that. But if you get your own place, if you have to pay your own rent, your own bills, oftentimes now people today have to work multiple jobs just to afford that. This is not easy out here, guys. Getting to the gym numerous days a week can be difficult in of itself, and if you want to really make time, you will, of course, but a lot of guys cannot be spending 2.5, 3 hours in the gym multiple days a week, let alone any days of the week. And even beyond that too, if you're somebody that goes to the gym more often, some guys can only condense their sessions into about 30 to 40 minutes. Lunch break at work, right before the kids come home from school, early in the morning, maybe between your first job and your second job, whatever it's going to be. A lot of people do not have the time to be in the gym for so long. And if you're going to do a lot of volume, by default, you have to be in the gym for much longer. And even beyond that, let's say you're a young dude and you can spend 20 plus hours a week in the gym. You don't need to. Why would you be there much longer than you need to be? I understand, right? It's cool. Maybe your friends go there. You can chat. You can look around at the cute girls and not talk to them. Even so, guys, just in terms of life, make better use of your time. Don't sit around in the gym, looking at your phone so long between all these sets, doing junk volume, getting the pump, taking a bunch of mirror selfies. You could put this time into studying, getting better grades, maybe get some scholarship money for school. If you're doing that, get a side hustle, get a job, get some pocket money, right? Whatever else. There's so many better ways to spend your time. Learn a new skill that can help you now or later in life. Anything is better than sitting around the gym for hours, just twiddling your thumbs. A lot of us have a tendency to lollygag in the gym and look at the phone too long and take longer than we need to. I do it myself. I'm not exempt here. But if you're in the gym 5, 6, God forbid, 7 days a week, 3 hours at a time,
get a life, kid.
You gotta find something else to do, okay? But this has been it for me, guys. Thank you for watching. Check out my training programs linked down below, as well as my Body Composition Bible, full, very in-depth nutrition guide. Stop wasting your time in the kitchen and grocery store as well as the gym. And if you want to get in direct contact with me, the best ways to do so are linked down below as well. And I will catch you guys next time.